Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football recruiting, my co-host and Happy Valley Insider's very own Dylan Callahan-Crowley. Dylan, this past weekend, Penn State hosted not one, not two, not three, but four committed prospects elsewhere. Let's go through them one by one and kind of talk where Penn State lands with, where Penn State stands with each of them. I want to start with the most recent one that just actually technically not committed anymore, just decommitted moments ago from Louisville. That's Josh Johnson, safety prospect from Ironton High School in Ohio. What's the latest you're kind of hearing there?
Yeah, definitely trending well here for Penn State. You know, Josh Johnson, three-star prospect, cornerback / safety prospect on campus for Penn State over the weekend for the UCLA game. And now, just a couple days later, decommits from Louisville. Penn State was the original team here that, we pinpointed as the favorite to land Johnson in the summer. Surprisingly, he committed to Louisville. Seemed like a coordinated effort from him and Louisville's standpoint to kind of try to create buzz for the Cards. But Penn State, after Antonio Branch decommit a couple weeks ago, kind of reopened up the playbook proverbially at the safety position in the 2025 recruiting class. Johnson was a guy that they've kept in contact with, was able to get him on campus kind of very quietly. We didn't know until he showed up on Saturday, and then just a few days later decommits from Louisville, which is probably a very good sign for Penn State here. Our future cast was with Penn State prior to his original commitment to Louisville, and at this point we see no reason to change that from the Nittany lines. I really like where Penn State sits here for Johnson. No timeline for decision right now. Decision could come soon for him. Could be a little bit of a wait. But when he does make a decision, I have a hard time seeing this one going against the Nittany Lions for a second time.
Yeah, like you said, longtime Penn State lean, I guess you could call him a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a lean.
Yeah, obviously Louisville got involved. It sounds like there was a little bit of NIL talk their summer there, and that's kind of why he ended up at Louisville. But this seems like great news for Penn State. Anytime you see a decommitment from a committed prospect elsewhere, days after a visit to campus, it's always a good sign. Now, hypothetically, they get him, Josh Johnson, who's I know projected at safety, corner, whatever you want to call it. 6'2" just screams safety to me, but. If they have him, they have Braswell Thomas at safety. Are they done at safety if they get both of them? Well, they got Braswell, so.
I would never say never. I mean, I think they're going to keep their options open at that safety position. Depending on how things break with a few other prospects, and assuming things go their way with Johnson, I wouldn't be surprised if he's, the last safety they take in this class, but. You never know how things break, especially now that we are late into the recruiting cycle. I think we're going to see going forward in recruiting. Cycles have a lot of chaos late as prospects kind of realize, hey, maybe I don't want to go far from home just for this NIL deal or whatever it may be. I think we're going to see a lot of prospects have late changes of heart in recruiting cycles going forward. So not going to say never, but I would say more than likely, he may be the last guy they take at safety in this cycle, considering what is out there.
Moving on to another one, Lex Cyrus, wide receiver from Susquehanna Township, was also at Penn State lean for a long time. Was down to Penn State or South Carolina, ended up committing to South Carolina July 11th. He was on campus for a little bit of a surprise visit, kind of came last minute. But what's the latest we're kind of hearing on him and Penn State's efforts to try to flip him? Because I know South Carolina this weekend also just landed a commitment, I believe.
They landed two wide receivers.
Two wide receivers in Jordan Gidron and Malik Clark, 5.9 4-star and 5.8 4-star. So,
yeah, two very highly recruited wide receivers there. Penn State I think is trending also well for Cyrus. I think this is one you look at, close kid nearby. There's obviously going to be a lot of pull from local ties for him to stay home and go to Penn State compared to going to South Carolina. But also you look at it, I mean, I don't think size of wide receiver classes matter here. Both teams are going to have big wide receiver rooms. But yeah, I mean, he was the guy at South Carolina for their recruiting class at wide receiver, and now he's kind of not an afterthought, but he's slid down the board a little bit in terms of their commitments there. For Penn State, I still think he lands with Penn State because of that local tie. He shoots up to potentially being the guy in Penn State's receiver class. I mean, just because of those local ties, he's a speedster, potential big play threat. We know he's not a potential big play threat. He is a big play threat. So I think he kind of could still be that guy for Penn State's wide receiver class, even though he's only a 3-star. Though I think all the wide receiver commits right now are 3 stars.
Kobe Howard.
No, Corey Howard, yeah. But still, I think Cyrus could still be the proverbial guy in that aspect. And then you added, look at South Carolina's remaining schedule. It does not get easy. I think they're sitting at 2-3 right now. There's very much a chance that this spirals out of control for South Carolina. I mean, their easiest game outside of, I think it's Wofford left, is Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt just knocked off the number 1 team in the country this week. So, I mean, that's not a gimme. So, I mean, if they spiral out of control, I mean, Shane Beamer could be out of a job, and that resets everything. So, I think Penn State is sitting well in a position for Lex Cyrus. I think there's a quality chance that they flip him by the end of this cycle. I'm not going to say it's, a definite or a lock, but I think if they continue to chip away here, they're going to be in a good position to eventually flip him from South Carolina. That's at least my gut feeling. I always thought there was a good chance he landed with Penn State. It was a little bit surprising when he did go to South Carolina originally. But, as we have learned in the NIL era, surprises are always going to happen. But also, NIL is not the end-all, be-all. Other factors end up playing, a big role in these type of recruitments. And I think that could be the case here for Cyrus as well.
Yeah, for sure. Next up on the list, it seems like this is just becoming a trend at this point. Former Penn State lean, we actually had future casts in for him at one point, and cornerback Brandon Finney out of McDonough High School.
Yeah.
Now, he committed to Oregon back in late June, but he's also taken a couple visits now. So now he visited Michigan in early September. He's planning to go to Michigan again. It was at Penn State this past weekend. He's planning to go to Oregon again. We know Penn State has some deep ties to McDonough with Kenny Sanders, of course. Where does Penn State kind of stand with Brandon Finney, top 170 kid in the country?
Yeah, I mean, this is one that obviously Penn State wants. We talked about it, I think, plenty of times. Penn State was never going to stop recruiting Brandon Finney once he committed to Oregon. That's another one where, it was a surprise when he committed to Oregon. Up until the 11th hour, it seems like he was headed to Penn State. Oregon comes in and, lands him at the last minute. I think Penn State's going to continue to chip away there. This one's going to go down to signing day, I think. Will they ultimately flip him? I'm not sure. There's plenty of factors in this recruitment that will ultimately decide where it goes. It's, already helped decide one decision for him, so we'll see how that factors in going forward. But that's the other thing to remember here is it's not always, there's a lot of factors that go in these kids' decisions beyond just, their opinions on a program. So we'll see what happens for Finney, but Penn State's going to continue to chip away there, but I don't see a flip being imminent in this one by any means, whether it's Penn State or Michigan.
Yeah. Is there a chance he stays with Oregon?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, absolutely. NIL, of course, always plays a factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Oregon's a very good program, has plenty of NIL money to go around. Their DB development is not too shabby itself. So, I mean, there's plenty of reasons for him to go to Oregon. But, a lot of the other factors definitely scream in Penn State's favor. I would probably put Michigan maybe third right now of those three teams. I maybe would say he's maybe likely right now. If I had to pick one, Oregon or the field, I'd probably pick Oregon right now. But I definitely think, that Penn State has a chance here over the next 7 to 8 weeks to chip away and potentially get him to flip that commitment to Penn State.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see what happens when he goes back to Michigan. He's supposed to go there for an official visit this fall. That could be a little bit of a swaying point, I guess. But he is also supposed to go to Oregon against their Ohio State game this weekend, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, this weekend.
Yeah. So it is this weekend. So that's going to be something to watch as well. And we know Oregon, Phil Knight obviously came out and said he'll spend just about anything to win a championship. So that includes recruiting.
Yeah, I actually think there's quite a few regional prospects from the East Coast that will be at that Oregon game. I know
Hmm.
uh, at least one of the Saab brothers, if not both, are going to be at that game. So I'm expecting there'll be a decent regional presence at that game, which makes sense. Oregon trying to, expand their recruiting efforts now more towards the East now that they're going to be playing these East Coast programs on a regular basis.
That's going to be interesting because I've heard they're also staying in state this weekend. But either way,
Really
The
interesting.
Saab brothers are going to be. I think they might end up staying local. To be honest with you, I think
I'm
Penn State has a great shot there. I know
I'm
we're kind of going
gonna
a little off topic with
I'm
26,
gonna make
27
sure that
kids.
it was the Saab brother, one of the Saab
Yeah,
brothers that told me. But
but either way, there's one candidate left for a flip right now, at least as of right now,
yeah.
and that's Central Catholic athlete Bradley Gompers, also on campus this weekend. We know James Franklin loves Central Catholic. He pointed at the camera, did the whole "I love Central Catholic, guys. I'm talking to you," which we kind of like to. Well, I kind of like to think at least that it was kind of aimed at Bradley
Oh
Gompers,
yeah.
so to
I
speak.
don't think you have to like that. It's aimed at It's 100% aimed at Bradley Gompers.
Yeah, so
100%.
makes sense. So now where's Penn State stand with him? I know he's committed to Duke. Projected, or he's technically an athlete, but 6'5", 215, probably an outside linebacker next level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's where he probably ends up in the next level. Makes sense. You look at Penn State's linebacker class right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Guys like Deshaun Burnett and LeVar Arrington could both end up at defensive end for Penn State long term,
Mm-hmm.
which leaves really Alex Tash as maybe their only true linebacker in this class.
Yeah.
Um, and so adding another guy like Gompers would definitely make sense. Gompers, I know, has called Penn State his dream school in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been told. So I definitely think Penn State continues to trend well in that direction. I think there's a lot of, he has a lot of respect for Manny Diaz and truly likes Duke and, wanted to be part of that program. But, once Penn State got involved, definitely had to change his thinking quite a bit. And this is more so my opinions on it, not any intel. But I think they'll eventually land him. I think there's just, he's trying to be smart with his decision, take his time, be respectful for Manny Diaz and that Duke program as well.
So out of those four guys, you think 3 out of 4 almost, I don't want to say definite because you never want to say definite with recruiting, but good chance for 3 out of those 4, you would say? Maybe 4 out of 4?
Yeah, I think you if we're ranking them, Johnson, Gompers, Cyrus, Finney is probably the likelihood, and um, I think Johnson and Gompers are a pretty high tier. There's a
Mm-hmm.
small gap, then Cyrus, and then I think there's a notable gap, and then Finney. And with Finney, you could probably throw Zahir Mathis in that category as
Okay.
well. I know he didn't visit this weekend, but obviously another guy that
Yeah.
they've been trying to flip over the last few months. He'll be visiting Oregon. He'll be visiting Ohio State for an official visit at the end of the month, which I think that visit could ultimately play a huge role in his recruitment. Could easily
Mm-hmm.
see him shutting it down after that, or could see Penn State, maybe even getting more of a foothold in his recruitment following that visit. He has not been on campus, I think, yet for a game day visit off the top of my head this year. And they're running out of time. They only have November now left, so you imagine they're going to try
Yeah.
to get him on campus for that Ohio State game on the second or the whiteout game on November 9th.
Ohio State game would make almost too much sense, I feel
Yeah,
like. Yeah. Kind of Ohio State commit, and God forbid, they beat them. It
yeah,
might just flip that day. Who knows? But
right.
some interesting visitors coming up over the next couple weeks. We know the whiteout list is growing more and more each day. I think we're sitting at I'm looking now actually. We're sitting at a pretty hefty list of heavy hitters. But
Yeah.
any other flip targets right now? I know those are the four, 5 if you count Zahir Mathis, but I
Um,
don't think there's another one. I'm trying to think if there's one.
there's guys that I think are worth monitoring, but nobody that I think is worth bringing up at this moment in time.
Okay.
We'll leave those remaining names for our subscribers over at Happy Valley Insider. So if you want to find out any potential other names, be sure to go over to pennstate.rivals.com. Uh, Subscribe. There's a free 30-day free trial. Rivals 30, I believe it is.
Yes. 30 rivals,
Um,
rivals 30. I'll
30.
double check on that.
Um,
You keep
Sign up
going
for
with
the
your
free
spiel.
trial, get all the inside information on Penn State recruiting, but also our deep analysis. I mean, just today we threw up a very deep dive into USC's offense and what to expect out of the Trojans this weekend. And you may come away surprised by what you learn about the Trojans coming into this weekend's game. Penn State is set for their biggest test this weekend in Los Angeles on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. So yeah, be sure to subscribe, go over, check out all the recruiting information, and on all the inside information you need on and off the field.
Yes, promo code is 30 Rivals, by the way. 30 RIVALS. Use that today. Also, we're sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, the number one ticket distribution app in college athletics and concerts and etc. All kinds of other stuff. I believe they've taken over as like the top ticketing app, which is kind of cool. They've also partnered with Penn State. They've partnered with every school, basically, essentially. MLB playoffs are going on right now. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, use the promo code Penn State Rivals on SeatGeek and get $20 off. You can also use it for tickets if you're flying out to USC to watch the Nittany Lions take on the Trojans, or for a Penn State home game coming up, the whiteout maybe. Save yourself $20 instead of spending $1,000. You get $980 for your expensive whiteout tickets. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. We have another podcast coming up soon, later on this week, with one of the USC beat writers from Trojansports.com, aka the USC Rivals site. So stay tuned for that. And that's really all we got for today. Dylan, anything else?
Not today. I mean, we're gonna have obviously a couple more podcasts this week previewing this big game for Penn State this weekend. This is in a season where there's playoff expectations. This is arguably the second biggest game on the schedule for Penn State the rest of the way. And they're going up against a desperate USC team that with another loss this weekend probably would be eliminated from the college football playoffs. So big one in Los Angeles, should be an exciting one. So definitely gonna have more breakdowns on that.
Yep, definitely need this win this weekend if you're Penn State. So stay tuned for that. We'll also have a post-game show this weekend. I know we haven't had it the past couple weekends. Our guy Greg was down in Asheville, North Carolina. All is well with him. He just didn't have internet because that crazy hurricane that went through there. But he is back and ready to go this weekend. So stay tuned for that post-game show. Stay tuned for our preview show that will be tomorrow or the next day. And
I know there's also a huge Penn State fan base in the South and in Florida. So anybody who's in the eye of Milton or in the path of Milton, please stay safe, and hopefully Florida can take a break here soon.
Yeah, and shout out to my guy Lieutenant Dan. If you're on that boat, man, good for you. I give you credit, and man's got balls. But anyway, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.